Thank you for attending tonight's meeting of the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. The agenda will be displayed on the screens in the front of the room. You may also follow along connecting to the district's website, wcsoh.org. Click on the district link, then select Board of Education, then Board Docs Agenda, and select this evening's meeting. There will be two opportunities to address the board this evening, the first being Agenda Item 6.01. The first set of public comments is relative to Agenda Items 8.01 through 11.02. Please state the agenda item you are referencing at the beginning of your comments. The second opportunity is Agenda Item 12.01. There's a sign-up sheet located on a table in the back of the room. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board. A timer will be shown on the screen, and with that, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Altman?
Here.
Mrs. Davidson?
Here.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Here.
Mr. Bell?
Here.
Mr. Velardo?
Here. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. But on behalf of the board, the superintendent treasurer, and all those who work around this district, we wanted to offer a special moment. And communities are marked in a lot of ways. Circumstances happen, and people remember that moment. On February 10, 2018, exactly 2 years ago tonight, Westerville Police Department and the Westerville community lost two outstanding young men. Officer Anthony Morelli, who was 54 years old, and he was a 29-year veteran of the Westerville Police Department. Officer Eric Juring was 39 years old. He was a 97 graduate of Westerville South. 16-year veteran of the Westerville Police Department. One person put it this way, quote, "They had the courage to run toward the unknown danger, and then their lives were taken because they were brave enough to answer the call." Before we say the pledge, we will ask you to unite together in a moment of silence in whatever suits you best to honor these officers, also husbands, also fathers, also friends, also, we would suggest, heroes. So will you please stand, join us in a moment of silence, and then we will say the pledge together. Thank you. Will you please join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, friends and community, for allowing us to remember together. Moving on to agenda item 3.01, it's the approval of the minutes of our regular Board of Education meeting held January 27, 2020. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you much. Any questions, concerns, anything? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Abstain.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Moving on, agenda item 4.01, district highlights and recognitions. Absolutely one of the funnest, which isn't a word, and awesomest, not a word, but coolest is a word, things that we get to do when we recognize people that go above and beyond is too little to say. These are 3 awesome award winners for the Leadership Westerville MLK Junior Legacy Project. And I am going to turn this over to my colleague and friend, Vice President Bell. He will head to the podium, I believe.
I will head to the podium if you all will come up.
We're going to go up front here. Thank you.
President Velardo, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, Ms. Marshall, I am excited this evening to be able to present and to recognize the Faust and Alston Award winners from this year's 2020 Leadership Westerville Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast Celebration that took place last month on the King holiday. I'll begin with the Faust Awards. The Faust Awards are named in honor of William H. Faust, who was the first African-American graduate of Westerville schools, as well as Otterbein, what was then Otterbein College. And so it's in his honor that we have named the awards that will be given to both. The awards are presented in both the primary as well as at the secondary level here in the Westerville area. The awards are presented to students who exhibit in everyday life the ideals that Dr. King espoused during his life and during his ministry. The first award winner is Mr. Frazier Hartnell. Frazier was nominated by one of his former teachers, Ms. Lisa DePose. I hope I pronounced Lisa's last name properly. Lisa says that Frazier shows tolerance towards others and is accepting of the cultural diversity in the school. Frazier has received the Student of the Month Pride Award every year that he's been at McVeigh. His kindness is contagious, and he is a peacemaker in his daily life. Outside of school, this lets us know we got to be careful. Frazier participates in flag football and has earned a black belt in Taekwondo. So our first recipient is Frazier Hartnell. Congratulations. Our second Faust Award winner is not with us this evening, but Ms. Candy Boache is a senior at Westerville South. She was nominated by the theater director, Mr. Matt Wolf. Candy was responsible for helping to integrate the dance troupe into her social group and has worked equally hard to bring her peers together with theater. She took over much of the planning and execution of the Black History Month celebration at South and created an environment where students of any background or culture were encouraged to celebrate their heritage. She played the lead role in Schoolgirls, which is a presentation that took place a few weeks ago. And it was the first regional presentation here in Central Ohio of that play, only the second high school in the country to produce it. And so we want to recognize Candy this evening as well. Our Alston Award winner this year at the breakfast is Ms. Ann Morahan. Ann is an advocate for immigrants and minorities in our community. She seeks justice and human rights for many people. She knows that tutoring people in English will empower them and enable them to be more independent in their community. In the 6 years since retiring from Westerville City Schools, Ann has volunteered weekly in a first grade classroom at McVeigh Elementary. She works to teach the students Spanish and to help them learn about Mexico and its culture. She's also involved in BREAD, which is an organization in Columbus working to get affordable housing, municipal identification cards, and helping teens stay out of criminal activity. She promotes and celebrates diversity and tolerance throughout the community. So would you please join me once again in celebrating and recognizing our Faust and Alston Award winners for 2020. At this time, we'll pause and allow, if you would like, you could stay for the rest of the meeting. It is exciting. It is. But at this time, we'll pause for a moment. You'll be able to go, and I believe, Greg?
No.
Oh. No pictures?
No.
Where'd he go?
He's doing something else.
Oh, okay.
Your speech at the Martin Luther King breakfast was amazing. Loving and
Thank
like
you.
Martin himself.
Well, thank you very much.
Your hand either.
Yes, thank you, sir. Great job. Keep up the great work. All right, Dad.
I'm basketball now.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Wondered because she,
Have a good evening. Thank you all for coming.
Fraser, yes, did she?
Not the other student.
She didn't. Was she not on the vehicle, Fraser? Yeah. Yeah. Dave Bose.
He's doing a presentation. He left me a note and said, I've been working on the pictures this time.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have told you that.
Okay.
Jim was getting
Tremendous privilege for the board to be and the administrative staff to be a part of that recognition. Thank you for allowing us to do that. Moving on to agenda item 5, reports, 5.01, an audit report. And I believe, Ms. Marshall, we're going to turn this over to you initially.
Yes, thank you, President Velardo, members of the board. I'm happy to report that we finished another audit for fiscal year 19. Our audit was actually just released today by the Auditor of State's office. So if anyone's interested, it's available on our website, but it's also on the Auditor of State's website if you want to see it. But we have a member of our audit committee here to present the board with the results of that audit. So I'm going to read a short bio of Margaret Doon. So Margaret is a lifelong resident of Westerville. She attended Westerville schools from kindergarten through graduation from Westerville High School. She also graduated from Otterbein University, earning her degree in education and later a degree in accounting. She attended Capital University while earning a master in business administration. Her first career was teaching at the elementary school level in a neighborhood school district, in a neighboring school for 7 years. She worked as a certified public accountant for 8 years before transitioning to governmental accounting. She earned the designation of Certified Government Finance Manager while employed with the City of Westerville, where she worked as an income tax auditor for 5 years before being promoted to Assistant Finance Director. She held that position for 12 years, during which she worked on gathering information for the comprehensive annual financial report and the grant schedules for federal awards required for the single audit. After leaving the city, she was hired by Worthington Public Libraries as a business manager and later also named Chief Fiscal Officer in tandem with the business manager duties. She was responsible for the operations of the library's comprehensive annual financial report, and after 9 years with the library, she retired in 2018. So we're very fortunate to have Mrs. Dune on our audit committee, and I'd like for her to come up and share with you our results from the audit.
Good evening. Now, this may not be as exciting to most people, but it is exciting to me to be on the audit committee, especially with the results that we had. So we did meet on January 29th to hear the audit report from auditors from Julian & Groove Incorporated. The report, for the fifth year in a row, the school district received a clean audit, which means that at the financial statement level and for the federal awards, there were no material control weaknesses, which is great, and no significant deficiencies in internal control. The auditor's opinions for both of these statements was unmodified, which is the best opinion you can attain. A prior year finding from 2014 is not fully corrected, but the Treasurer's Office is working with the State Attorney General's Office toward recovering those funds, and payments are being received. I am pleased to report that the school district's comprehensive annual financial report has received the Government Finance Officers Association's Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting for over 19 years. The 2019 CAFR has been submitted to the GFOA for evaluation as well. The school district and Treasurer's Office have also received the Auditor of States Award since 2011, and due to the clean audit, I assume it will probably be issued again. So I would like to congratulate Ms. Marshall and her staff on the clean audit this year. Do you have any questions? Like I said, this is exciting for me, maybe not so much for everyone else. I like numbers.
I would say to you that kind of audit report actually is exciting to us. Not that we understand everything in the audit, but it is exciting for us, yes.
And I do enjoy reading the financial statements each year. I'm probably one of a few people that read the entire thing. So, and thank you for allowing me to come and present.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you for working on the audit committee.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
We really appreciate that, and we would concur that due to Ms. Marshall and her team, that is the reason we are in the good stead that we are with this audit report.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to thank Mrs. Dune for being here tonight and reporting to the board. I will say the Treasurer's Office works very diligently towards that, towards having a clean audit on an annual basis, but it's also a district-wide thing, so every member of our staff in some way touches our audit. So it's definitely a concerted effort, collaborative effort with the entire district and everyone involved. So even the board members, right? You guys get your questions, you have to
Absolutely.
answer, and yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're very excited about that. The like I said, the state has released it. They just released it today. I do anticipate that we'll receive the Auditor's Award with distinction. This will be the 8th year in a row for the district to receive that award, and that is a big deal. The state auditor audits all together with the private firms, the IPAs, audits about 6,000 entities statewide on an annual basis, and less than 300 actually receive that award every year. So it's a big deal. So we'll be contacting the Auditor of State's office to see when they're going to come and present us with that award. Hopefully we can get them to a board meeting. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you for that report, and thank you for coming tonight and sharing your time, and again, to Ms. Marshall and her team. Just tremendous work. Thank you. Agenda item 5.02, the census report. We have a special report coming up on a 2020 census we'd like to share with you. Mr. V. Brantz?
Good evening, President Velardo, Vice President Bell, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, Ms. Marshall. The Westerville City School District is one of several organizations that is working with the City of Westerville on a census committee whose goal is to ensure as complete of a count as possible for our community in the upcoming 2020 census. Each organization is working to build awareness in various ways of the fact that the census is happening this year. So this evening, we have invited Mr. Mark Boyd to present to you and the community. Mark, if you could come up. As Mark comes up, I'll let you know that he is a partnership specialist from the United States Census Bureau. He's been working with this committee and the district on various census awareness building initiatives. And Mark also happens to live in Westerville. So, yes. So I'm going to stop so I don't take any of his thunder, but I will simply turn it over to Mark and have him tell you everything you need to know about the 2020 census, and I believe that will work for you.
Thank you. Well, notwithstanding the awards, which were great, you guys have an exciting agenda. You got audits and the census. Whoa. Man, oh man, I should come to more of these. Anyway, I really do want to, all kidding aside, I want to thank the board for allowing me to present some really, really important information regarding the upcoming 2020 census. It is less than 40 days away, and it is a massive operation in which we count everybody living in the United States. As a matter of fact, the census is the largest peacetime operation that the federal government undertakes. So it's really important, it's vitally critical to our state, our counties, our cities, our communities, and our neighborhoods. So today, what I'd like to talk to you today about is what you should tell your friends, your family, and your neighbors. When I leave this, I want you to tell your friends and your family and your neighbors that the census is easy, it's safe, and it's really, really important. That's the three things I want you to say to them. It's important, 2020 census is important because the decennial census is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution states that the actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such manner as they shall by law direct. So, in addition to our founding fathers mandating that we count everybody living in the United States, the census is really important for our representation in Congress. Every 10 years, the results of the census are used to reapportion the House of Representatives, determining how many seats each state gets. It's also about the redistricting of those same U.S. congressional seats. It's used to redraw the boundaries of those congressional districts and also state legislative districts and also school board districts, which is important to you guys, I think. The 2020 census is important because of the allocation of funding. Census data determines how more than $675 billion, that's billion with a B, are spent supporting your state and your country and your county and your community's vital programs. So this is funding for nearly everything: public safety, schools, hospitals, roads and bridges, social services, transportation, and housing. So I just want to list just the top 10 or 11 programs that the decennial census count in part determines the allocation of funding for. The first one is medical assistance program, that's Medicaid, that's the biggest. Supplemental nutrition assistance program, that's food stamps, that's another big one. Medicare Part B, highway planning and construction, those are Department of Transportation grants that are important for our roads, fixing potholes and stuff like that. Pell Grant, the National School Lunch Program, temporary assistance for needy families, Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher, Title I grants for local education, important to you guys, special education grants to states, and Head Start. So some of those are really particular to the school district and really important to you. And I suspect, and I would venture to say, that the other ones are important also in as effect that if a family is healthy and getting supported in programs that they need, children are better able to learn and be educated. So all of those, I think, are really important for the school district. Next, it's easy. It really is. You can do it online for the first time ever. That's going to save lots of taxpayer dollars, right? We're going to send out an invitation in the mail on March 12th, between March 12th and the 20th. Invitation is going to come to every single household in the United States, and it's going to invite you to go online to do the census. And there'll be a code there that identifies your address. And if you do not want to go online to do the census, say you're not connected or you're technology challenged, then you can still do it by phone. There'll be an 800 number available. You can do that in 13 languages, including English. You can do the online portion in 13 languages, including English. And then if you don't want to do it online or by phone, you can still do it by the traditional paper method. So if you just wait till the beginning of April, so those invitations will go out in March. If you wait till the beginning of April, first week in April, you'll automatically get a questionnaire in the mail because we figured you haven't done it online. We'll know that, and you'll get a questionnaire, and you can do it on paper. So we've made it easy. And the census is safe. So this is really important, especially for trusted voices like you on the board and the school district administration, to get this message out to people who may be fearful of the government or distrustful of the government. None of your personally identifiable information can be shared with any other government agency. Not law enforcement, either federal, state, or local. That means not immigration, not ICE, not INS, not the FBI, not any federal, state, or local program that provides benefits like Medicare or Medicaid or jobs and family services or housing or welfare. None of your personally identifiable information can be shared with any of those agencies under Title 13 of the U.S. Code, as Census Bureau employees were subject to $250,000 in fines, 5 years in prison if we allow any improper disclosure of information. So we take it very, very seriously, and the information is safe. So we need people like you and trusted voices to get that message out to the community. Now, bet you're thinking about how you can help. Well, we hope that the board will promote 2020 census awareness of the importance and the benefits of completing a 2020 census to your students and your parents. That's a large portion of the city that we need to count, and you guys can get the word to them. And we make this easy by making this website available, 2020census.gov/partners/outreach materials. So on this site, you can get professionally done, well done pieces for posters or fact sheets, social media, messages, logos, taglines, videos, customizable PSAs. I'm going to talk about those PSAs in just a minute. You can also use by placing 2020 census awareness posters in schools, in administration buildings, sports facilities, and high traffic areas. Here's an example of one of the posters, just one of many educational posters we have available. You can see the tagline says, "When you shape education, you shape our future." And then the print smaller below there, I put up on the side, it says, "Respond to the 2020 census and inform funding for educational programs that benefit our children, like after-school activities, school meal programs, and Head Start. It's more than a count. It's an opportunity to shape the next generation." So there's lots of these materials available for you guys to post. You can also help by posting 2020 census awareness messages in school websites, and social media, and email blast. Here's an example of one we put in for Facebook. The art comes along with it. You can change it, you can customize it, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. They're already ready for you, and this is a longer one for Facebook. We have shorter ones for Twitter and Instagram. This one says, every 10 years, the U.S. Census Bureau undertakes a mammoth task, counting all the people residing in the United States. This count affects the allocation of funding for our community's public resources, examples of which are roads and hospitals and schools, how we plan for the future, and our voice in government. Learn more about the importance of the 2020 census and how you can participate. So that's ready to go. Just post it. Ready to go. And lots of examples and different ones like that. So I'd like to share a little bit with you about outreach activities for the city of Westerville. Greg mentioned it briefly. The city of Westerville has formed what we call complete count committees. Westerville calls theirs Westerville Counts. And what a complete count committee is a volunteer committee of trusted voices, influential leaders from a cross-section of the community who strategize on how to get a complete and accurate count. We focus a lot on hard-to-count populations to make sure we're outreaching to those and strategizing on how to make sure they're counted. Included in the Westerville Counts Committee is the mayor, city council, city departments, the Westerville Chamber, faith-based organizations like WARM and WAMA, Westerville Library, healthcare organizations like Nationwide Children's Hospital, Ohio Health, and Mount Carmel St. Anne's, Otterbein University, Westerville Historical Society, New Americans, and look at that last one, Westerville City School Districts. Let me talk about what you guys have done with the help of Greg's facilitation. So, we have already presented to 2 English language learning classes about the importance and benefits of the census. Those are hard to count populations. Non-English speaking populations are really hard to count, so outreaching to them is important. We presented to the Westerville Parent Council. We're presenting to you guys right now, and there's an upcoming school administrators meeting I'm going to present to. So that's really important to get the information to the educators, to the teachers, so they can get it to the students and the parents. Greg has facilitated social media posts about the benefits of the 2020 census. Several social study teachers are incorporating census content into lessons plans. 2020 census awareness messages on the district and school website pages and Power School. And then there are emails to staffs about Statistics in Schools Awareness Week, which is March 2nd through the 6th. Don't really have time to go into that, but that's a big event when we talk about statistics and the census in schools. So, okay, almost done here. Key takeaways. We want to count everybody only once and in the right place, and we want you to remember and tell your friends and family and your neighbors that the census is easy, it's safe, and it's important. It's easy because you can do it online or by paper or by phone. It's safe because your information can't be shared with any other government agency, and it's important for all the reasons I mentioned, that it determines our representation in Congress. It also determines the allocation of all that important federal funding and comes back down to helps improve our communities and our schools and our neighborhoods and our city. And what I would like to ask you guys before I leave is that since you are trusted voices and influential leaders in the community and you often talk to other organizations within the city about the school board, we would like you to just add a 15 or 30-second elevator pitch about the census in all of your presentations. And you can just simply say it's easy, it's safe, and it's important, because your trusted voices are important in getting that message out. People believe you, especially undercounted populations. They'll believe you more than they'll believe somebody from the Census Bureau. And then finally, I'd like to ask you guys to possibly maybe record a PSA. We have them already scripted on that same site I mentioned too, and put that on your website or on Facebook or on the school media channel would be really wonderful. Just throwing that out there, just a suggestion to you guys. Hopefully you can do that. And then here's my perfunctory social media slide. And I don't think we're going to do questions right now, or are we? No?
We can, sure, hang there for a second. Any particular questions or thoughts for Mr. Boyd? Or for Mr. Vibrance, either one.
So just remember that presentation was a 30-minute presentation, was condensed.
I know. And you did well.
Thank you. I was threatened.
And now you know how we feel. I appreciate you saying easy, safe, and important. I have one question. None of this information can be shared with any other government agency, correct?
Correct.
I would think that one of the hardest things that you're trying to do is get people to respond, and one of the major barriers would be the misunderstanding of that, right?
Right.
That sometimes people are afraid. So my question actually is a pretty simple one. You showed a piece or two that you said you could post this, et cetera, et cetera. On those postable, tweetable, et cetera, items, are any of them with the line in there, you can feel safe? None of your personally identified blah, blah, blah. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, there's lots of those in
Great.
different languages also.
Okay, great. I just
same
thought that's a key deal.
It
right?
is. It's
And you
important.
can't convince anybody if they don't want to be convinced. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a key thing to have out there. So thank you. I just was wondering if that was on some of your postable items.
One of those safety and confidentiality fact sheets are in your folder that I gave out for you
Oh,
guys.
okay, good.
So that's an example of just one of them. We also have it in the form of social media, short messages, taglines. It's all over that website. So
Good. Any
I want to
other-
thank Greg, too. He's really been fantastic. I do a lot of complete count committees in a lot of municipalities across Franklin County, and I'm from Westerville, so maybe I'm biased, but Greg has been outstanding in facilitating outreach to the schools. So thank you, Greg.
Greg Vibrance has been outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I'm just clarifying. No. If there's no others, Mr. Boyd, thank you really so much for coming. I know you had to go down. Mr. Vibrance, do you have anything to follow that up with?
My next report.
Okay, we'll go on to the next report. Thank you again, Mr. Boyd. Agenda item 5.03, thought exchange update. Mr. Vibrance,
I am back. Good
Thank
evening
you.
again.
exceptional, Mr. Vibrance, yes.
No, he must be talking about the other Greg in the department. He just got the last names mixed up. Good evening again. I am here at this time to share an update with you and a summary of the thought exchange that we recently ran regarding attendance boundary realignment. The one thing I would share with you about thought exchange, for those, I'm sure all of you have seen it, but for those that may be watching or listening to this and aren't familiar with it, this basically takes what's commonly known as the nominal group technique and brings it into the 21st century, puts it online. It's consensus building. If any of you have ever gone through the exercise, maybe in a community meeting or a business meeting where you post-it notes amongst ideas and you're given a sheet full of little dots and you go and rate the ideas that you most agree with, and then those are consolidated and streamlined into statements. That's basically what this does. The nice thing is this brings a tremendous convenience. Instead of expecting people to come to a certain location on a certain date at a certain time and give a portion of their evening to the process, this allows people to do it online at their convenience when they have that opportunity. And so you'll see some of the numbers here. The thought exchange that we ran went from January 17th through the 31st, so we had a full 2 weeks. We had 676 people participate in the thought exchange, generating 669 thoughts. And those 31,153 ratings, those are the individual, instead of a little sticker dot, this uses a star rating, so they could issue 1 to 5 stars on the statements that they most agreed with. So that's the interactive nature of this, is it allows you to see what other individuals are posting, and you're allowed to share the extent to which you agree with what other individuals are saying by issuing those star ratings. So I don't know that in the 31 years I've been in this business, I've ever seen a meeting with 676 people show up for something like this. So having that many people participate is a really good thing. On the right is the demographic breakdown of self-reporting of who participated. So the largest group was 460 individuals, or 71%, identifying themselves as a parent or guardian of a student enrolled in the district. That makes sense and is good, since those are the individuals most likely to be impacted by this work that's upcoming. The second largest group were employees of the districts at 16%. And then we had employee of the district with children enrolled in the school system at 8%. Community members residing in the school system at 3%. And then at 1% were a couple of other categories we put out there as kind of catch-alls, just in case someone fit into a different category, maybe a business member or something else. So those were our other categories. So the question that we posed during this thought exchange was, what considerations should be given to balancing the demographic composition of a school's student population with providing families a neighborhood school experience? And that's what individuals had the opportunity to react to. Now, this slide here is grouped topics that rose to the top from all respondents. So some of the themes that came out of everyone, those comments that were rated the highest, fell into these categories. We had a lot of reference to the importance of being close to the school. This increased the likelihood of participation in school events and put less of a burden on families. So keeping students assigned to those schools that are close to their homes. They also mentioned decreased travel time on buses and the importance of the ability to walk to school, to and from school, with students from their neighborhoods. They expressed some comfort and safety of knowing that the kids are close by, and how having kids attending schools near their neighborhoods build a sense of community. Some of the individuals mentioned that when they purchased their homes, they made that decision based on the schools that they were near and the education that they believed they would be getting. And so they chose those neighborhoods on those factors and wanted that to be considered by the group that would be working on these attendance boundaries. And then finally, one call out was that boundaries should not divide neighborhoods. So try to keep neighborhoods complete and together attending the schools. For each of those subcategories that we shared earlier, these were the thoughts that came out of those. And you'll see a lot of consistency in the messaging. This mentioned travel time on buses. Our parents and guardians wanted to see an effort that minimized the distance and travel time on buses. That also provided them with that sense of safety and comfort that kids were nearby. Neighborhood schools increasing the likelihood of parent participation in school events and student participation in events. Having kids attend schools close to home would allow them to maintain relationships, kids being able to walk to and from school again with children from their own neighborhoods and their streets, and keep a mind on feeder patterns. Again, the sense of community, the convenience for families, especially for those who have students who are involved in school and do not drive. I would venture to guess that's probably 100% of our elementary and middle school students where this work is occurring, but a good call out nonetheless. And then finally, referencing again people's selections of the neighborhoods they moved into and the homes they purchased, that having schools nearby, knowing that they would be going to that school, has a positive impact on property values and helps strengthen communities. The top thoughts from employees, a lot of the same thing, maybe a little bit of that employee perspective, obviously, the educator perspective. Excessive travel time has an impact on the academic performance of students, a negative impact on the performance of students. Students who attend schools close to home, again, builds those neighborhood connections and increases community involvement. They wanted us to consider the staff and potential challenges of attendance boundary realignment and how we can keep quality teachers. That's a crucial aspect to the work we're doing. One of the other things that came out from employees is they would like to see the district maintain current walkers. And what they mean by that is if a student is currently walking to school, don't redistrict them so they then have to go on a bus and go somewhere else. To try to honor the walking routes as they stand. Look at the opportunity to keep kids together at the elementary, middle, and high school level. Equity was a topic that came up in here, that equity should be based on the needs of the student population and also look at the ability to provide special services that are required at those schools. And then the point that the diversity of socioeconomic status of the student population is beneficial to students. It helps prepare them for the real world, so to speak. You heard many of the same things from employees with children enrolled in the district. Neighborhood schools build a sense of community. Don't ignore the demographics. Keep kids together from elementary to middle school for consistency. Consistency of class size, that was a new topic that kind of came up in this group. But how can we maintain consistent class sizes through this work? Decreased travel time also results in decreased cost for transportation, and those long commutes can be exhausting for students. And then finally, the convenience for families and the increased opportunities for involvement in school activities. Top thoughts for community members and residents. Neighborhood schools provide that sense of community. They like the idea of kids being able to walk to and from school. Appreciation for diversity was expressed. Again, this helps students learn how to engage with people who are different from them and prepares them for the real world. Schools need access to good teachers. Having a diverse student population helps the schools and students perform well. There was some support for all-day kindergarten expressed in this group. Also wanted the district to look at how this might address overflow situations where students are reassigned to another building even though they are supposed to go to that particular building close to their neighborhood. Again, the convenience for families, involvement in activities, and one of the comments, a couple of the comments, obviously we have some well-informed individuals that said, make sure you also keep an eye on what this will do to the Title I composition of your schools if this is going to change that status for anybody. So be cognizant of that. The other categories that we had up there, statistically, we didn't have enough for the program to come up with a report to what we had for the other ones. But when you put those comments into the broader, all of the comments from everyone, they were very consistent with what they were saying. And that is pretty much it. The next steps will be to provide those top comments to the committees that will help inform their work as they begin this process next week.
Thank you very much. Are there some thoughts, some reflections, some concerns or questions? Yes.
So just one quick question, and I didn't look through these, so I don't know what was said. As far as feeder patterns, and then I assume when the staff was talking about elementary, middle, and high school, do they consider what we have now as a feeder pattern?
I think generally what you saw were people that would like to see the district explore
Gotcha.
keeping students from an elementary to the same middle to
Okay.
the same high school, not necessarily what we have now.
Right, so it was not. Okay, thank you.
And Greg, these results are going to be available online for anybody in the public after our first meeting with the realignment committee next week, is that correct?
Actually, later this week, we will be launching a web page dedicated to the boundary process, and so that will go live soon here. We'll have a button on the front page so it's easily identifiable, and people will be able to click through and follow this process as it begins all the way through its end.
A quick question, Greg. So I'm just wondering if you can share how you tried to make sure you had a really good representative sample from, all different parts of the district and different schools represented on the front end, and then on the back end, if you have a way to sort of assess whether or not that actually happened.
Sure. So one of the things that we're able to do, and this is one of the nice things of the system that we have in place, and probably the reason why you saw so many families, is we pushed this out directly to families via email. There were at least 2 opportunities for families. There was the initial call to action to participate, and then there was a follow-up as we got closer to the closing of the thought exchange. We also pushed opportunities out through social media and the several thousand individuals. Obviously, there's some overlap there. Families that would receive this directly from us would also be seeing it through the social media. But those were the primary means of turning out individuals to participate. And we also provided it to all staff members, same type of a schedule, giving them the opportunity and a reminder to go ahead and participate. We are in the process as far as effort. We didn't have it in time for this, but moving forward, we are in the process of acquiring another 13,000 email addresses for individuals in the community who don't necessarily have children in the school system. So as far as a direct-to-consumer, if you will, or direct-to-community, that's something that we're going to have in our pocket in the future to try to get some better participation.
But I think it's important to note this wouldn't be a representative sample of the district. These are the people who chose to respond.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't want anybody to go away saying, well, what's your margin of error on here? And how tight is this with what we think the community at large thinks? So it's not representative.
It is not. No, it was not
Yeah.
drawn as a representative sample.
Right.
It was kind of that, throw it out there, and who wants to participate
Yeah.
has the opportunity.
I appreciate all the work that you put in making sure that it got out and got out several times. As a parent, I'm aware that happened, so thank you. Yeah.
When's the next time you're going out?
Not sure. It really is based upon the information needs that you have at the time. This tool only allows you to ask that one question and get the feedback that way. So we have to weigh whether or not this is the right vehicle to go out to the community and seek additional feedback, or if there are other options out there. So we're going to play it by ear moving forward, but I do think we're safe in saying there will be several additional opportunities for families and members of the community to weigh in and share their feedback as this process concludes.
Thanks.
Any other thoughts, concerns? I would like to echo comments up here. Thank you for this work, really good work. It's a very helpful beginning. I think it'll give the committee some good running starts, and I think it's appropriate to say thank you to the 676 people in the community that took the time to do this. This is too easy to get an email and say, other people will do that, and nearly 700 people did it, and we are grateful to all of those.
So
Sure.
one more quick question. Can we tell who is responding? I mean, we know who who's asking and answering questions and,
As far as taking it is an anonymous process, so I'm not sure if you're meaning,
So is
can
it
we
com-
identify individuals? We have the demographic breakdown as far as how they reported themselves as the parent or anything, and we would have the ability to do some geographic if we wanted to move in that direction, but for this initial presentation, we stuck with the demographics of who participated.
so does your child attend an elementary school? Not which school does your child attend? Something like that?
Right, we could get to the individual building level if we needed to.
Any others? Thank you, Mr. Rebrands. Appreciate it very much. Moving on in our agenda to agenda item 6.01, public comments pertaining to action items. We have one, Peg Duffy. Remember that you have 5 minutes to address the board in the public comments section of the agenda. Remember to address the agenda item that you're referencing at the beginning. A timer will be shown on the screens. Mr. Hershiser will call time when 5 minutes are elapsed. Please address your comments to the board, not the audience. You've heard this before, so I know you know what you're doing, so share with us.
Heard it for about 25 years, didn't start initially. It's item 9.09, charge to the 2019-2020 Realignment Committee. One clarification, another's a question. All right. Therefore, as part of its efforts to develop an effective, appropriate boundary realignment plan, the Westerville Board of Education hereby creates the committee. So, clarification, this is a committee of the board, not of the superintendent. I ask for that clarification because that makes a difference when you file a public information request.
You are correct. Yes.
And then under committee responsibilities, the realignment committee is charged with developing options regarding possible elementary and middle school attendance boundary adjustments for the Westerville City Schools. For the middle school committee, does that cover all existing middle schools as well as the new? Will they be considering all of those in those boundaries?
Thank you, Ms. Duffy. Would you, Mr. Rebrands, Dr. Kellogg?
The charge calls for looking at both elementary and middle, looking at boundaries, but if you read through some of the components of the charge, it also talks about minimizing the impact on people. So, yes, all boundaries are part of the consideration, but in the balance of doing as minimal change as we need to in order to accomplish the outcome.
Thank you very much, and I know normally don't call on to respond immediately to that. I apologize if I caught you off guard, but I knew you had the answer, like, right there. Appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Duffy.
Did I get that right, Mr. Dorn? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duffy. Moving on, agenda item 7, financials. We have none this evening. Moving on, agenda item 8, personnel consent agenda. 8.01 through 8.08. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Share with us.
Good evening, President Velardo, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg. I'd like to present for your consideration tonight's personnel consent agenda. This is a relatively brief consent agenda. This is kind of the calm before the storm in the human resources world when it comes to education. We have 4 resignations from classified and classified substitute positions, as well as 2 licensed teacher resignations. We have the employment of 8 individuals in a number of classified and classified substitute positions. And finally, in the licensed employment section, you'll see that we have a number of people who are recommending to the board for various supplemental and classified pupil activity program positions. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments at the point? Please call the roll.
Dr. Nestabaker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Saltman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Moving on, agenda item 9, old business, 9.01, final reading, policy 1240.01, non-reemployment of the superintendent. May I have a second and may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. May I ask that we take 9.02, final reading policy 1615, use of tobacco by administrators, through 9.06, policy 7434, use of tobacco on school premises. All of these have to do with use of tobacco products, et cetera, by different constituencies in the school district. That's why I'm suggesting lumping those together. Lumping, I got to come up with a better word than that. Taking those together. So I first need a motion and a second to do that, correct? May I have a motion and a second to do that?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes, now a motion and a second to vote on them.
So moved.
Second?
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Final reading 9.07, policy 8403, school resource officer. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved?
Second.
Questions, concerns, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Item 9.08, final reading policy 7110, realignment. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. 9.09, final reading, realignment committee charge. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes, just in case you don't know, all of those policies, this was the final reading. We go through several readings, and so that's why it moves as quickly as it does. I'm always hesitant to do that in case people don't know, and we're just going through the numbers. But there's been ample opportunity for people to make comments, suggestions, et cetera. So just clarification on that. Moving on, new business, item 10.01, first reading, the 2021-2022 academic calendar year. The wonderful Mr. Vibrance is back at the microphone.
Me again. Thank you. Good evening again. Before you this evening is the recommended calendar for the 2021-22 academic year. The Board of Education annually approves the calendars for future school years. This calendar that is being brought for your consideration is prepared annually by the district's calendar committee. It is taken to the district's executive leadership team and reviewed there before it is brought to you for your consideration. The final authority to set these school calendars is legally and exclusively that of the Board of Education. So for the calendar that's before you this evening, our typical practice has been to have academic calendars approved 2 years in advance, and this keeps us on that cycle. This calendar also continues the practice of not starting the school year with a full 5-day week for students. We also exceed the minimum number of instructional hours as required by the state, and also includes time to address calamity days or other unforeseen events that might impact the days or hours that we are in session. As in past calendars, the first semester ends prior to winter break, and the school year ends during the week prior to the Memorial Day holiday. Spring break begins during the last week of March, and classes then resume April 4th. We have kept the spring break consistent with the last week of March in the past calendars. This proposed calendar also incorporates professional development days on August 9th and November 2nd, and there are 4 early release days scheduled for September 23rd, November 18th, January 27th and March 17th. St. Patrick's Day, I think. So that would be a fun one. In order to avoid the academic year ending too far in advance of the Memorial Day weekend, and that's when graduation occurs, plus given the length of the second semester being several days longer than the first semester, we were able to incorporate some extended weekends around recognized holidays that often involve travel for families. So we've been able to break up that longer second semester with a couple of 4-day weekends that went over very, very well with the committee. Speaking of the committee, representatives from each employee association and other areas of operation, such as transportation, testing, and communications, obviously, as well as a representative from Parent Council. So we'd like to thank Sarah Blankenberg, who was the Parent Council's representative this year. That's the group that comprises this calendar committee. So they're all invited to participate on the calendar committee and complete this work as we move forward to bring these recommendations to you. So this is the first reading of the proposed calendar. The second reading of the calendar would occur on April 6th. We only have one meeting in March, and the state requires us to have at least 30 days between the time the first reading and the final approval occurs. So since we only have one meeting in March, we would miss that 30-day window, so we'll have to bring it back to you on April 6th for a second reading. This calendar is available on the district website under, appropriately enough, our calendars, and people can take a look at it there and see what they think. So with that, the recommendation as we move forward will be for the board to approve the calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Vibrants. Any questions at this time? I would bring one thing to you, Mr. Vibrants. My oldest son is graduating in May. This calendar has the date on when my youngest son will graduate. So I don't know if you're trying to kill me or if you're trying to... If my wife was here, she would vote against this. I just want you to know.
It happens to the best of us.
I
Those are the
know.
unavoidable things that you pick up as those little nuances as you move forward.
Oh, it's awesome. Thank you for the work, and everybody else that's done this work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on, agenda item 11, recommended action standing business, 11.01, design professional agreement. Mr. Dorn will come and share with us. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Dorn, welcome to Mr. Vibrantz's podium.
I appreciate him letting me borrow it for a few moments here. Good evening, President Velardo, Vice President Bell, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, and Mrs. Marshall. Before you tonight is an agreement with Triad Architects Limited to serve as the professional design firm for the district-funded Expedited Local Partnership Program project to design and construct improvements to school facilities in conjunction with our recent bond request, as well as to continue work with the district and our standard capital improvement program. In May, the district published a request for qualifications for design services and subsequently received 9 statements of qualifications from various firms. Those statements were evaluated by the 4 evaluation team members using 23 criterion from the request for qualifications as a guide. Each team member reviewed the documents independently, and there was consensus by all 4 team members that Triad Architects was in the first-ranked position. Given the long-standing relationship with and history with Triad Architects of successful projects, and the fact that they were independently selected by all 4 members of the evaluation team as the most qualified firm, the evaluation team recommended to the board that the district continue to work with Triad for design services to implement the first 5 years of the district's facility master plan, which includes a new elementary school, a new middle school, renovation and expansion of Annhurst Elementary School, renovation and expansion of Whittier Elementary School, partial renovation of Hamby Elementary School, partial renovation of Emerson Elementary School, as well as other various building improvements at all other existing buildings, as well as other district capital improvement projects. That recommendation was approved by the board. Subsequently, the district entered into an interim service agreement with Triad while we awaited the results of the November ballot issue. Once that issue was approved by the community, we were able to enter into an agreement with Triad that both terminates and supersedes the interim service agreement and defines the scope of work for the next 5 years. Through recent conversations with the OFCC, we may now be able to include the Westerville South phases 2 through 5 project and the discrete portion of the ELP project through an amendment, so we're very happy about that. Including the bond, the certificates of participation funds, and permanent improvement funds, we anticipate more than $144 million will be directed towards improvement projects that are included in this agreement. There are many costs associated with these projects, such as land surveys, agency approvals, testing, risk insurance, etc. When those costs are backed out of the budget, we have a construction budget of $128,950,557, for which the design fees are based on. Exhibit H defines those individual project construction budgets and relates design fees that total $9,711,249, just over $10 million on your document in front of you when you include the reimbursables, the pass-through costs. It is recommended that the board approve the agreement with Triad.
Thank you, Mr. Dorn. Any questions, concerns, thoughts?
I just have
No, go ahead.
one question,
Go ahead,
just a
sure.
quick clarification. You mentioned being able to wrap phases 2 through 5 at Westerville South into the agreement. Can you, and that has benefit, but can you just briefly explain for everybody what that benefit is?
Sure. Right now, we don't actually qualify for the OFCC CFAP program. When we do, the state would fund a portion of the projects that we're going to do. So right now, in the ELP project, we can earn credit for future projects. The Westerville South projects, phases 2 through 5, really are right in the neighborhood of about $20 million. Our percentage is 35%. We wouldn't get 35% of $20 million, but we would get a significant amount of money if we were able to do this. And so that could be anywhere between $5 and $7 million that we would earn credit for to be applied to a future project. So that's why it's helpful and important to us.
It's awesome.
I just want to say thank you for keeping us very well informed as this has gone forward. Appreciate it very much.
Really well done. Thank you. Echo what the comments have been. Thank you very much. Might, what's that?
Need to vote.
I knew that. I was going to say call the roll. Please call the roll, Ms. Marshall.
Dr. Destabaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
That's why she's here. Yes. Thank you very much for reminding me. What I started to say was I think there's a thank you to the community, too, for allowing us the funds and voting and allowing us to move forward with what we believe and the community, I think, at large believes are important projects. So thank you. Agenda item 1102, overnight field trips. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you much. Any questions or comments? Looks like Central High School students, part of the Key Club, going to be doing some leadership conferencing. That's an awesome, awesome organization. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nestabaker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Moving on, agenda item 12.01, public comments. We have one, Ms. Peg Duffy.
The bad penny returns. I think most of you are familiar with the school calendar. Some awesome artwork by students from across the district in various grade levels. And actually, I'm envious because I can barely draw a stick figure. The calendar itself has items that are on the school schedule. Testing dates, spring and winter break, days that we don't have school, like the upcoming President's Days. It also has cultural and religious holidays. Chinese New Year, well-known Christian and Jewish holidays, holidays in the faiths of Islam and Hindu. As we had recognized earlier in this evening's meeting with the Martin Luther King, we are a very diverse district. In fact, when I checked about a month ago, we had 58 languages, 63 countries. Diverse, but inclusive. So, when I took the calendar and went to the back page, I was disappointed to see board members identify with titles that are specific to a particular religion. Why not use the names under which people were elected? According to the Franklin County Board of Elections, in 2017, we elected Tracy Davidson, Nancy Nestor Baker, Rick A. Villardo. In 2019, Jennifer Altman, Vaughn E. Bell. I guess my concern is if academic titles and degrees are so important to your role on board, then I ask you if you would please list these following your surname in the same way that the superintendent does on his page.
Thank you, Ms. Duffy. Appreciate your comments. Moving on to agenda item 1301. Any board comments for the good of the cause? Hearing none. Congratulations to the award winners, and thank you for allowing us to celebrate you. And again, thank you for allowing us, staff, administration, to honor the officers that we lost 2 years ago this evening. Agenda item 14.01, the board will meet in regular session on Monday, February 24th, and Monday, March 9, 2020, 6 p.m. here in the Early Learning Center. And moving on to agenda item 15.01, moving into an executive session for the purpose of considering the employment and compensation of a school official. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Villardo?
Yes, we will go into executive session. We will dismiss or adjourn from there. Thank you so much for coming this evening.